Staff would like to reorder the agenda, or suggest reordering the agenda.
Okay, so when I ask for the approval of the agenda, we're getting a reordering.
He's got a striped shirt on.
Got the memo.
Oh my
All
gosh,
for
that
you.
is hilarious.
What the
It's
heck?
just the simple things in life.
The other day you were all blue. I'm very
I'm sorry, I just
confused.
had a moment there. I looked at the.
It was clean.
Exactly.
Left is wearing blue stripe, just like Joe and Mike, I kid you
So
not.
Tim, go home and put on those stripes.
So our legal counsel is running a little bit late,
Yeah.
and so we would like to suggest moving items 6 and 7, the public comment and communications, before the public hearing for the trustee area maps.
So that'll be the first things when we come back in. And then we will go, before 3. Okay, any other changes? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved?
And a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 5-0. So we will adjourn to, or convene to closed session. We'll talk about Ed Code 35146, consideration of confidential student matters, and conference with legal counsel, anticipated legal date, easy for me to say, litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to paragraph 2, subdivision B, section 54956.9, and C, conference of labor negotiator, Lawton Pond, Lewis and Ard, organizations for RPCEA and CSEA. So we will now convene to session.
Yeah.
Convene to open session. No action was taken in closed session. So now we will go to 3B, flag salute. So you want to introduce who we have tonight?
I have Anthony Chimino. He's in Miss Talbot's 5th grade class, and I think his little sister Madison might come up and help too.
All right.
Come on up, guys. And she's in Miss Allen's TK class.
Put your right hand over your heart.
Look at stamps.
Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So thank you. Brother and sister team, that's a first. That's great. So give it your sister first. Ken, okay, so, and tell me what you like, what's your favorite subject? PE. And your favorite subject? PE. Okay. All right, and you guys ready to introduce the Ken collection tonight? Your mom, and who else? Oh, your dad. Thank you very much. Let's see, 3 more years, and my granddaughter can be doing this. So. Okay, so we moved the agenda around a little bit, and we're now going to go to 6, public comment, and I don't have any, so there'll be no public comment. So we will go to 7A. Whoop. Oh, we do have one. Yes, no?
Good. Oh, I'm sorry, I did not do that, but I will fill it now. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am here upon the invitation of your Assistant Superintendent, Julie Snyard?
Close.
Snyard.
It's close.
Well, my last name is Dev Getchis, and that's a mouthful right there. I'm the Executive Director of Housing Land Trust of Sonoma County, and this is a very hard act to follow. I'm also a credentialed special ed teacher. Well done. Excellent. And I represent Housing Land Trust of Sonoma County. It's a nonprofit here in Sonoma County. We partner with all the cities in the county to provide workforce housing. We house a great number of teachers, medical personnel, basically creating homeownership opportunities for people who work here, live here, but are priced out of the private housing market. So we have a brand new program that we just launched, and that's why I'm here. It's very specific to the area of Vernard Park. It's a pilot program. The city of Vernard Park had $200,000 that they wanted to spend on some kind of housing, affordable housing project, and I happened to secure another $300,000 from the county, so we put it together. And we've launched a pilot program where we are taking homes off the speculative market, and we are putting in a $100,000 grant in each one of those homes and making that home affordable to the paycheck. And so if you live or work in Vernard Park, you do have preference. We only have enough for 4 homes, and we just launched it, and there will be a community meeting at City Hall in Vernard Park on March 25th at, I believe it's 6 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken, but there's a flyer that I've emailed you and sent. So all are welcome to apply, but we're always rooting for our teachers, so thank you for lending an ear, and I will fill out the form. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll move to student board member reports.
Yay.
So Juliet, want to go first?
Yes. Good evening. Tech High ended the month of February with our first ever blood drive in which 21 donors gave 24 life-saving pints of blood. Vitalent would now like to host a second drive this year on our campus, which is pretty exciting. We also held our Blacklight Dance, which proved to be a huge success. ASB is currently preparing for our annual talent show, set to occur on March 27th from 6:30 to 8 in RMU. This event showcases the variety of talent that the Tech High student body has and is one of my personal favorite events. We also strongly encourage all of you to come, as it is one of our most entertaining events of the year, and the students performing would love to see you there. There are also several other events in the works, such as our dodgeball tournament on April 10th and our color run on May 1st. We are also in the process of forming a student senate at Tech High, which would bring a diverse group of students together to work alongside ASB in order to develop more culture and a greater sense of community on our campus. The student senate would also be tasked in assisting Mrs. Mahoney in the development of the student code of conduct. Speaking of ASB, this week is campaign week for those interested in being in the 2020-2021 ASB Executive Board, which includes cabinet members and class reps. Elections would be held this Friday, March 13th, and we cannot wait to see who next year's executive board members are. Also, for those of you who enjoy the performing arts, Tech High Drama will be performing West Side Story at our district's new tag building from April 3rd to 5th. This is their second production ever, and only the second year that Tech has ever had a musical theater program, so we would love it if everyone could come and show their support. Ticket prices are $15 for general admission and $20 at the door. On another note, our spring sports season has officially begun. We have had many successful games and tournaments so far this season, and we hope to have many more. We would love it if you all could come support our Titan athletes at any of their games. Just a reminder, though, that all of our events are tentative depending on the CDC recommendations about the coronavirus, as our school is taking this virus quite seriously and is implementing the appropriate preventative measures. Thank you.
Starting off the month of March, ASB has begun planning for next school year by holding an ASB Rush, where prospective students were able to learn about the commissions and jobs within the class. Today as well, we held our executive board elections, where next year's president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and school board representative will be voted into office. Freshmen, sophomores, and juniors were able to vote their favorite candidates, and results will be revealed later on this week. This week as well is also a Spirit Week for Rancho, our annual Versus Week. We have fun and exciting days for students to dress up, such as Animal Print versus Stripes and Mathletes versus Athletes. It's a great way for students to get excited about spring break. Spring sports have begun, and our Cougar athletes are pumped up for the last season of the school year. I would also like to recognize Holly Espinoza, who placed 4th at CIF for girls wrestling. Great work, Holly, and our fellow Cougars. As the 2019-2020 school year enters its last lap, our senior class council is working hard in preparing our senior week and graduation. Along with this, our juniors are getting excited as prom nears closer and closer. Prom will be on April 25th, and this year's theme is Masks and Roses, and our students are excited for this masquerade-esque ball. We look forward to all the events the end of our school year will bring. Thank you.
Thank you. So 7B, Roanoke Park Cotati Educators Association report. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Throughout the year, I've spent a lot of time focusing in on some good things that are happening at our schools, and part of my message today will be the same. There will be some other, maybe sadder things I might want to say. First of all, we're really grateful to the district for the serious approach they've taken regarding the virus that's going around, and I know that the custodial staff is taking extra precaution to make sure that our students are safe, that our teachers are safe, and that everybody is safe. So thank you very much. We had our first bargaining meeting with the district on March the 2nd. RIPSIA made a 3-year wage increase proposal, including retroactive to July 1st, 2019. Our next session will be on April the 9th. Evergreen has had a very busy time since we met last month. They had their open house showcase in February with a great turnout, and their TK kindergarten enrollment is high, and they feel like this bodes well for their future. They feel that this is a result of their ongoing work with restorative practices and commitment from the staff to continue the positive school culture that is becoming well known to the community. Evergreen received a full grant funding from Community Matters and offered the Safe School Ambassadors program for 40 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders and 7 staff members. Staff and students will be meeting twice a month in their SSA family groups to continue their anti-bullying and restorative practice efforts. They're continuing their parenting classes, and they've trained the school in restorative practices with Maria Freebairn-Smith, who must be a relative of mine somehow. The ongoing topic right now is how to parent with love when at your wit's end. Food, childcare, and Spanish interpreting services are provided, and the remaining classes will be one in March, one in April, and one in May. And then their office manager put together a team of teachers and parents to compete in the basketball portion of the Sports Expo, the Bobcat Ballers. They ended the day with a tie and a loss that they will be practicing heavily for the next year. At Tech Middle, their sports and PTSA hosted the first middle school sports expo at the TAG building. All parents, high school students, and middle school students were invited to participate in a 5K run or basketball and volleyball tournament, followed by a barbecue and Kona ice. All proceeds went to the middle school sports program, and they had a great turnout and lots of spectators. Now on more challenging, you might say. Last Friday on March the 6th, RIPSIA learned of agenda item 10A, the reduction in force, for tonight's board meeting. As you can imagine, this news created some sleepless nights over the weekend and anxious moments for many of our RIPSIA members, knowing that either they or someone they know will be out looking for a new job. As dedicated teachers and counselors, we give all our energy to train and educate the rising generation, feeling it our duty, spending many make a difference. They considered it a calling. I find that to be truly noble. And now, after all of that effort, some of our RIPSIA family members are facing termination. It is an awful time. We haven't had a reduction in force for many years. Words cannot express our feelings of sorrow for those who are directly impacted. I know from personal experience, having worked and being let go in 3 other districts, what it is like in the summertime, getting up each morning, trying and hoping to find a job to support your family. And on a personal, with trying to raise 6 children. It is very hard. And even though our members are told that it's not their fault, it seems natural to beat yourself up. I've also watched it from the other side of things when, as a RIPSIA site representative, I sat in on that dreaded meeting when the member is told thanks and goodbye. We understand that the school board is to ensure that the district is run as an efficient business to remain solvent. That's critical. At the same time, we need the best minds and efforts throughout the community to attract families to our great schools. While I don't have the answers on how to attract those families, I think about that at least 88 students who reside in our district boundaries are attending our competing public charter high school. That's nearly $900,000 in lost ADA to our district. For now, we hope for a miracle before the final May deadline. We wish the very best to all of our RIPSIA family, and most especially to those hit by this devastating news, including the assistant principals. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go back to 4A. So we are going to make sure I get my script right here. We will convene a public hearing to receive testimony concerning the proposed trustee voting area plans associated with the district's transition to a by-trustee area election system. So we will have presentations and questions by our demographer and for our attorney. So it's
Which way should I?
All right, I'm going to help you. You
Okay.
just click at it and we'll
I'll give you the thumbs up for each
go
one.
for it.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Jonathan Salt. We're, as you know, the district council assisting with this transition. I'm joined by Larry Furtraw, the demographer, who drew all the maps that you'll see tonight. This is a critical stage of this important process. Tonight is the final map public hearing, so it's the last chance for members of the community to give their input to the board before the board ultimately, on the next agenda item, votes to potentially approve one of these options as the district's new election map for board members. So again, you know, after we speak, if you have questions, come up or give your feedback as much as you can. Background, the CVRA, the California Voting Rights Act, it's approaching old, but essentially of elections or elect candidates of choice, that election system might, on its face, violate the California Voting Rights Act. Another key reason why this is popping up in the city here, at the district, and around the state is that a prevailing plaintiff who goes after or alleges a violation of a city or school district or water district is entitled to attorney's fees and expert fees. And if a school district were to win, it wouldn't be entitled to those same rights. And so as such, to date, no public entity in California has successfully defended an allegation of CVRA violation, but those who have fought it have spent millions and millions of dollars in their own defense. The only safe harbor to prevent one of those claims is to transition from an at-large to a by-trustee area election system, where the district will be divided into 5 roughly equal population areas, and a board member eventually will be elected from each of those areas. I'll hand it off to Larry to talk about the map drawing process and go over the maps.
So as we've talked about, the maps are drawn to be consistent with federal, state, and case law. So they have to be drawn using the 2010 census data, even though we're weeks away from the 2020 census. Those numbers won't be available to next year, so that's why we have to use the 2010 census still. The areas have to be roughly equal in terms of total population, with a variance that's allowed of up to 10% between the largest and smallest areas. Go to the next slide. Some of the other things is they have to be drawn to comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act, so that we can't do anything that impairs members of protected classes from being able to influence the elections. They have to be contiguous, they have to be compact, they have to look at communities of interest and try to keep those together, and they cannot favor or discriminate against any incumbents, political candidates, or political parties. Go to the next slide. This is the demographic information from the 2010 census. 52,746 folks lived in the district at that time, which means 5 roughly equal areas of 10,549 people. Again, a variance of up to 10% between the largest and smallest. You can see the ethnic breakdowns of the population there. Just under 68% white, just under 21% Latino, and just under 5% Asian. Those are the 3 largest groups on total population. You can go to the next slide, and this looks at Latino citizen voting age population estimates. So again, we see 16% Latino, just under 75% white, and 4.21% Asian. The map on the left-hand side shows areas of concentration of the Hispanic Latino citizen voting age population. So don't really see areas of too much increased concentration. So that's why when you look at these areas, you don't see any scenarios where we get to a majority Latino area in the maps. So go to the next slide here. So we've developed 3 maps that have been the subject of these now 3 public hearings. They've been available on the district's website for members of the community to see. I believe they've been posted to social media and other outlets to get input as well. But this is scenario A. In terms of the color schemes, area 1 is in that northern part in yellow, area 2 just south of it in green, kind of south of golf course, west of Country Club on both sides of the expressway there. Area 3 is the entirety of the west of 101 area, and then coming across east of 101 to most of Cotati area. Then area 4 in blue, kind of centered around where we are at right now, the Technology Middle School, High School, and then coming south of Cotati Avenue, and then area 5 being the eastern portion of the district. So all the board members' residences are identified there, and when the terms are expiring for those board members. All the school sites are on the map. The city jurisdictional boundaries are also there, with the city of Cotati in the red outline, the city of Roanoke Park in the blue outline. You'll also see that we have the sequencing identified for these as suggested sequencings that you could utilize. So area 1 in this particular map, areas 1 and 2 would be in 2022, area 5 would be in 2020, and then the board could choose between areas 3 and 4 for 2020 or 2022. The law doesn't provide much in the way of guidance other than to say that the area that's selected to go first should be the one that complies with the spirit of the California Voting Rights Act. So that's kind of gives preference to the spirit of the California Voting Rights Act. So that's kind of an outline of the map. You can see the variance in this map is 2.01%. If we go to the next slide, we can see areas of increased influence for members of protected classes highlighted here. So this is citizen voting age population. So you can see area 2 and area 4 where we have the Latino population is above the district average at 18.61% in area 2 and 17.73% in area 4. Again, that's a couple percentage points above the district average of 16%. The Asian population in areas 2, 4, and 5 are a little bit above the district average, area 5 being the highest at a little bit over 2 percentage points above the district average. And then the African American population, again, small increases in areas 3 and 5. So we can go to the next one. This is map B. Area 1 is pretty much the same in map B. Area 2 goes on both sides of 101, on both sides of Roanoke Park Expressway as well. Area 3 is a little bit more of a compact area of Roanoke Park, including Reed, Crane, and Technology Middle School and High School. Area 4 is all of Cotati, and then the L section of Roanoke Park on both sides of 101. And then Area 5 is in that eastern side again, like it was in scenario A. Go to the next slide here. I'll go back to this, sorry, one last thing. In terms of sequencing, the same type of sequencing, areas 1 and 2 in 2022, area 5 in 2020, and then the choice between areas 3 or 4 in 2020 or 2022 in terms of sequencing of the elections. Demographics, we see again 2 areas of increased influence for the Latino population in areas 2 and 3, area 3 being the highest at 22.55%, and across the 3 scenarios, that is the highest Latino population on citizen voting age. Areas 4 and 5, where you see a little bit of an increase in the African American citizen voting age population, and areas 2, 3, and 5, where you see a bit of an increase for the Asian citizen voting age population. Finally, scenario C. Again, area 1, yellow, kind of hugs that northeastern boundary of the district, a little more narrow there. Area 2, taking the golf course and going across 101. Area 3 on both sides of 101, most of Cotati, but also including parts of the A and B sections of Roanoke Park. Area 4 being parts of Cotati, and then the L and C sections of Roanoke Park, and then Area 5 in the eastern side there. Same sequencing option, 1 and 2 in 2022, 5 in 2020, and then between 3 and 4 for 2020 or 22. And those are, again, the suggestions for the board's consideration. In terms of the demographics on the following slide, areas 2 and 3, again, where we see increased Latino citizen voting age population by a couple percentage points. Areas 2, 3, and 5 with small increases among the African American citizen voting age population, and areas 1 and 5 for the Asian citizen voting age population increase. So I'll turn it back over to John for the next steps.
And so again, and we've mentioned this at each of the meetings, these new maps do not impact where anyone's children go to school. It doesn't impact how the board is governed. It's still one board. All the trustees, no matter when or how they're elected, still represent the entire district. So it's still one board with common goals and challenges. Recapping the schedule, we've had 5 public hearings. This is the last one, the 3rd one on the maps. And with that, I think I'll leave this up for discussion if there's anyone in the community who wants to provide input. There hasn't been a lot of input received from what I understand. So now would be the last chance for anybody to come up and say which map they like or don't like. Thanks.
Looks like we don't have public comment, so discussion by the board then? Questions?
The board may either discuss here or close the public hearing and then open up the resolution item and discuss as well, and we'll stay up here the whole time.
All right, so we will close the public hearing for A and go to 4B, where we can have discussion.
So I was curious, we did have a letter that was sent in and asked for some revisions done to the map, and I was just wondering why there was no revisions or anything done.
I think that the letter, if I remember offhand, it talked about not liking that A and B were split up on at least one of the map options, and also a distinction if we want to go to any of the options. Okay, so just looking at this one, I think the comments were, and it's not a good example here, but that A and B were split up in some of the other options, and also that the Roanoke Park Expressway, when it comes into the purple area, that the northern side of it and the southern side of it don't necessarily share the same communities of interest. You know, as you know, the number one priority is equal population. And so there just isn't necessarily a way to create a perfect map where every single area of town that should or shouldn't be together is going to be possible to be drawn and still maintain equal population. For example, on this map, all of Katati is in the blue area, and it still requires more population to create an area. So why there wasn't a new map created, I don't believe that there was direction given to create a new map, but it certainly it's interesting feedback for the board. I know that there was, again, a comment about A and B maybe, from what I took from that, should maybe be kept together according to that person.
Did we ever respond to the person that wrote the letter?
We responded to the person, but the board did not provide direction to have another map done.
So in questions? Questions, Joe? Questions, Tim? Questions, Jennifer?
Any questions?
I have a question. In districts 3 and 4, one of which we can vote to do this year and one in 2022, what's the difference in the protected class between districts 3 and 4, i.e. your instruction that, keeping with the spirit, would be that we pick the one that has the highest concentration, and would that be the District 3?
It would depend on the map. So in map scenario A, but on the one slide back from where we are now.
Keep going,
Sorry.
keep going. You just tell me when to stop.
Other way.
Other way.
Go forward, not backward.
One more. There we go. Look at this one.
Almost, we almost got it. There we go.
Okay, so on map scenario A, between 3 and 4, there's an argument that 4 on that map would be the one that has the most increased influence for protected classes, because it gets up to 17.73% of the Latino protected class population by citizen voting age, and a little bit over for the Asian population, 4.78. On the other maps, I think it's area 3 that has that similar designation. So 4 has more increased influence in map A for protected classes, and I would say 3 does in maps B and C.
What's the difference in percentage? Is it a few percent? Is it?
So in scenario A, you're talking about 2 percentage points between areas 3 and 4. In map B, we're looking at a much larger percentage, about 10 percentage points between areas 3 and 4 in map B.
So is it B has a larger percentage in, 3 has a larger percentage in B?
Yeah, so in map
Because
B.
some of these are, like, you've got 4 for this map and 3 for a similar area there, so it's kind of confusing.
Yeah, in map B, area 3 has the highest, area 3 has the highest Latino citizen voting age population concentration among all 3 scenarios.
Right.
And then the differential between that in area 3 and area 4 is about 10 percentage points in scenario B.
Okay.
So it's the highest. It makes that choice a little bit easier to see that difference than
So
it did
just
in
to be
scenario
clear, if, for example, we chose map B, we would want to sequence 3 to stay in the spirit? Is that what you're saying?
That's
Okay,
correct.
and then what about map C? What's the percentage?
In map C, the percentage is 19.73% Latino versus 14.89% Latino for area 4. So just under 5 percentage points difference. So not quite as dramatic as
4 the higher in map C?
3 is the higher in map
3
C.
is the higher.
So
But
it's-
overall, in all 3 maps, B has the largest protected area
for Area 3
Well,
in
when
map
it comes
B.
to sequencing,
See, for sequencing,
yeah,
Because it includes A, B, and C.
right.
not all parts. Some parts are still falling into other districts. There's nothing we can do.
Was it 3B has the highest population out of all the scenarios and all the maps?
Correct. That
Protecting
22%,
class, yeah.
that's the highest percentage of Latino citizen voting age population in any of the maps.
In any area, on any map.
Okay, so I'm going to ask another question. Since I don't have a color map in front of me, and I apologize. So if we're looking at map A, area 1 in yellow is currently trustee Brown and myself. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, in District 1. In District 2, that has 3 of our trustees on map A, 2?
Two.
Sorry. It has trustees Chimino and Wildermuth, correct?
Correct.
3 is empty,
Correct.
4 is empty,
Correct.
and trustee Non is in District 5.
Correct.
So when you pick the sequencing for this particular map, you have it, I can't see it from here, I apologize. What is the sequencing is,
The suggested sequencing would be the areas that have trustees who still have term to 2022. Those areas would be open for election in 2022, so that the other areas could start to fill in with representation sooner. So on scenario A, for example, for 2022, it's currently recommended, but you don't need to listen. Yellow and green, so 1 and 2 would be for 2022, and then 1 of 3 and 4. And for 2020, the soonest election, 1 of 3 and 4, plus the purple area, area 5.
okay.
And then the rationale for that is if another area that already has someone with term in it were to be open sooner, it would just mean that there would be more open areas for longer. And so about 40% of the district wouldn't have a trustee for another 2.5 years.
Okay, so scenario A, 2022 is District 1, and District 2, and District 5.
No, 3
No?
or 4.
3 or 4.
3 or 4. Did I say 2022? I'm going to start over. I meant 2020. Okay, so 2020, we've got,
It would be Area 5 and then either 3 or 4.
okay. And that's just for map A.
Yes.
And then what happens when you go to map B?
It's actually the exact same thing, so
So A and B are the same?
in terms of sequencing based on the suggestions.
Okay. So those are the same. Then what happens in map C that's different?
The difference being that there are 3 board members who reside in Area 2 and only 1 board member who resides in Area 1. The sequencing aspect is still the same because you have 1 board member in Area 1 whose term expires in 2022, and then in Area 3, in Area 2, where we have 3 board members, 2 of whom expire in 2022, their terms, that is, and 1 of whose term expires in 2020. So the sequencing options remain the same, it's just a difference because we have 3 board members in Area 2 as opposed to 2 in each of Areas 1 and 2.
Okay.
So, is there anything in the law, I mean, we've heard some interest that says the cities could be separated. In one of the maps, C isolates Cotati, or does it?
B.
Map B isolates Cotati as kind of one entity. So if I lived in Cotati, and I know it doesn't go by city boundaries, but I'll just say this. If we chose map B, you would have 4 trustees from Roanoke Park boundaries and 1 from Cotati. But I don't think that's the nature of what we're trying to do here, right? So you don't go divided up by cities, it's divided by,
Districts.
by districts and by race groups and underprivileged, et cetera, right? Or not underprivileged, but just different protected things.
In theory, you could have map B, and you could have no board members who actually reside within Cotati as well, because there are.
Sorry, it's been a little delayed.
Or you could, so somebody could. from
Julie,
the
can you go
Rotary-
back one?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
he
have
got
it.
it.
It's just a little bit delayed, sorry.
So in map B, conceivably, that you could have 5 board members that all live within the city of Rohnert Park. But that's not,
Across all scenarios, because we can't have Cotati be coterminous as only one area.
I know, because there's too many votes.
Right, so we've got the L section, we've got these parts of the unincorporated county that could be elected from that area by the residents of that area.
And our focus as board members is not which city we live in, it's for the K-12 district. And that's what we do. But I've heard that, I think, did the letter address that they wanted somebody from Cotati that we got or not?
Well, Cotati
The letter
can't have
just
its
stated
own.
that Cotati was lumped in with unlike areas in some of, like, for example, in this map option, or it's split up in the other options. And I think in the response, it was just explained as a population imbalance that just needed more population in it, at least on this one where it's all together.
So there's no scenario in which Cotati can be its own thing because there aren't enough people. You had to pull from another, from part of L section, et cetera.
Correct. So if there is a want to keep Cotati entirely by itself, it will still require other areas like on map B. Another thought to that, if A and B are under consideration, would be that maybe there's a positive of keeping it together or a positive of splitting it up, and so that there's more reach of Cotati residents in different trustee areas. That's entirely up to you.
I don't personally have a desire to keep Cotati separate. It's the Cotati Rohnert Park Unified School District. I don't feel it's necessary to try to carve out its own niche as opposed to being part of the district. I'd have no problem with it blending with parts of Rohnert Park. I think that's totally appropriate for our situation.
And in terms of sequencing, by 2022, there will be a trustee in every area. It's just a matter of how that phases in the next election.
Okay.
Is there any scenario in which we chose a certain map and a certain sequencing, and it would allow 2 people from Cotati to be elected because Cotati is split up into 2 different areas?
Yeah.
Yes, maps A and C would allow for that because Cotati is divided between 2 areas with other communities, and so you could have 2 seats within.
Yeah, so by 2022, there could be 2 seats from Cotati.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Then I have one other question.
Of course.
In areas 3 and 4 within each of the 3 maps, there's a difference in terms of the percentage of the protected classes. Are we, by law, by the spirit or letter of the law, either one, are we required to choose the area which has the highest percentage of protected classes?
It's not necessarily a written requirement. It doesn't say in the law you must choose the area with the largest percentage. But what the law does say is that when you're considering sequences of elections and when there's potentially going to be an open area, the board should consider the spirit and intent of the CVRA, which is arguably to increase the opportunity for protected classes to influence the election. And therefore, arguably, the areas that have the largest increase, therefore have the most effect of the trustee areas, would in theory, they'd probably hope to want to have a vote sooner.
Okay. Well, I'd like to make a motion.
Well, are we done, wait a minute, are we done with discussion?
I just want to say that the way I feel about it is map B with scenario 3 being up in 2020 gives the biggest gains and highest percentage for a protected class. So that's the one that I look forward to because.
What are the percentages?
It's 32 point.
Oh, no, it's 22.5 22.5%.
Which area?
it's 3. It's a scenario B, map B.
It's 10% different than 4.
Yeah.
So what's the percentage of area 4 in map B?
12,
And what's the percentage in map B, area 3?
22 and a half.
Oh,
And also, Tim, it's the highest area out of all the maps and all the scenarios.
it's a highest percentage
highest
of protected
concentration.
classes?
Yeah, so that gives the protected class the highest voting percentage
Right.
out of every scenario and every map.
And this is all subject to change a year from now.
Correct. So after the census comes out in the spring, the board's obligation would be to review the maps or essentially impute the new census data onto the then current map, whichever map is picked. And if there's a population imbalance that's greater than 10%, then you have to just adjust the lines. It's not as intensive a process as this has been because you're changing systems now, but you have to just look and make sure you still have that population equality, and if you don't, make minor adjustments. So the maps could change depending upon how concentrated growth has been over the last 10 years.
And, looking at this and looking at the growth within the city, it looks like the most of the growth will be in section 5, right?
Correct.
So that area is liable to spike up.
It won't be, 10% though, it won't be too much. There might be a sliver that goes that way, but the rest, it won't be that great of a number.
You can just come into the end section, if you will, and, move area 4. We're looking at scenario B, you can move area 4 this way, or you can move area 2 across, something like that to balance that out. But I'm thinking most of the growth is up in this area. if I'm correct.
Yeah, because nothing, it's gonna have been what is built, like as of this summer is when they're gonna be doing this.
Right.
Right,
3
right
weeks
now.
from now.
Yeah.
Right. Prospective building doesn't count for the purposes of the census.
Right, exactly. So the rest of the building that takes place in Roanoke Park, that won't be in the census for another, what, 10 years? Yeah.
And that's just because there's no way to keep accurate count of how many people on a given day or month are living within the city. And so what the law states, and it's similar with Congress, that's why we have the census, is to, okay, well, after 10 years, let's take a look and make sure that we're still being as equal as possible in terms of everyone's voting power.
Any more questions?
So those blue lines, that's, sorry, the blue line there is Katati?
The red line.
Red line is Katati. And so then can I see B? And then C?
So in B, all of Katati is within Area 4, and Roanoke Park is split up amongst several. In in maps A and C, Katati is in both the Area 3, Area 4, and a sliver of Area 5 in map C, and actually similar in map A as well. So mostly Katati in the maps are in Area 3, a little bit of 4, a sliver of 5, with the exception of map B where it's all in Area 4.
Could you give me the breakdown of the percentage in map C of 3 and 4 for the protected classes?
Yes. So if in map C, area 3 for the Hispanic Latino population, it's 19.73% based on citizen voting age, versus map 4, which is about 14.89%, so about a 5% difference. And then kind of going further down the chart here, for the African American population, it's 2.71% in 3 and 0.98% in 4. And then there's no other increased influence throughout the rest of
What
that
was
area.
the Latino, I'm sorry, between 3 and 4?
19.73 and 14.89, so about 5% between 3 and 4 in map C.
And what was
for
it
the Latino population?
What was it for B3?
B3, it's about a 10% spread, 22.55 versus 12.39.
But the difference between District 3, between map B and C is roughly 3%.
Yeah, right.
District 3 in map B has the highest, correct, if I'm, for the highest Hispanic Latino numbers?
22.55, yeah.
Yeah.
And map C is 19.73, 3% difference, roughly.
Yeah.
Little less, actually.
Are we ready for motions?
Just want to make sure all questions have been answered. Okay. So, make sure.
And just so the way the motion process would work, you have a resolution in front of you, and so someone could move to approve the resolution and then insert whichever map letter you prefer with whichever sequencing you prefer.
And that's Resolution 1920-15?
Is that, I don't have it in front of me.
Yes.
Yes.
So does someone want to make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to move that we approve Resolution 1920-15, map C, Area 3.
What do you mean, area 3?
Map C and District or Area 3,
District 3
Oh.
would be in the 2020.
and then District 5.
So the way I understand the motion is that it's a motion to approve the resolution with map C, and then for the 2020 election, areas 3 and 5.
Yes,
And for 2022, 1, 2, and 4. That's the motion.
yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Whoa, 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 whoa. So
Can you
C-
say that one more time?
Sure. So,
Okay.
from my understanding of the motion is to approve the resolution with map C, and in terms of election sequencing for 2020, the motion would be to have area 3 red and 5 purple at the next election, and then 1 yellow, 2 green, and 4 blue would be the 2022 cycle.
And 3 has a lower Hispanic group.
No,
Not on
In-
map C.
in
not on
map C,
C.
3 is 19.73
Yeah.
based on the citizen voting age Latino versus 4 at 14.89. So that's the motion that's, I guess, before the board.
yes.
Is 3 at 19.73. Correct? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll make a second.
Okay, so it's a resolution, so we have to go roll call.
Trustee Brown?
Nope.
Trustee Chimino?
No.
Trustee Gillis?
Yes.
Trustee Nahn?
Yes,
Trustee Wilchenroot?
No.
So at this stage, discussion can continue, and if somebody wants to make the same or a different motion.
Is that okay if I make a motion, guys?
Yes.
To do map B with area 3 in the 2020 and area 4 in the 2022, and then keeping to your guys' recommendation for the rest of the election years.
What was the rest of the sequencing?
So I believe that the motion, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to approve of the resolution with map scenario B, and for 2020, have areas 3 in red and 5 in purple up for election, and then in 2022, areas 1 yellow, 2 green, and 4 blue. Is that my?
Yes.
Okay. So that's the motion.
Okay, got a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call.
Trustee Brown?
Yes?
Trustee Chimino?
Yes.
Trustee Gillis?
Yes.
Trustee Nahn?
yes.
Trustee Wilchenroot?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
I'm still confused.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. Thank you. into open session. So we are on the consent agenda, 8.
I recuse myself from item 8C.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0 with Tim recusing himself from 8C. 9, education services, school calendar for 2020.
Okay, we are bringing forth a very collective effort. I want to thank everybody who has served on the calendar committee. This was not an easy task this year. Thank you to all the members from RIPC, SC, SEA, and SEIU for helping us try and figure this out. So this is our best effort, our best collective effort for the drafts of these school calendars. And thank you to Mindy, who made 47 drafts. Thank you.
So, real quick, just for like knowledge, I know we talked about this, but how does the last 3 days, the emergency school closure days, just so
We're
people-
hoping we don't have to use them. So
Right.
in the event that we don't have any school closures, we will end school on the 28th and not worry about the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd.
So if there's graduations, would the graduation shift till after, or?
We're
would we-
hoping not, so people can make their graduation plans, but again, I think that might be just to be determined, and space allocation, all that fun stuff. So, we're hoping to keep it on the 28th. That being said, it'll be an emergency situation, and we'll adapt as necessary.
Roll with it.
Exactly, exactly.
Any questions? August 12th just seems early.
Yep, every year it seems earlier.
Yeah. Anyway, no questions? I have
I move that we approve the school calendars for the 2020-2021 school year.
Okay. Have a second?
I'll second.
Oh,
Okay.
it's accurate.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And so I have 9B, Resolution 1920-14, designating alternative holidays in lieu of regular holidays.
And this is just kind of our annual, submitting this to you, staff recommending that observance of Admissions Day, September 9th, be assigned to the Wednesday before Thanksgiving by means of adopted resolution. Lincoln's birthday will be observed on Monday, February 8th, and that's all the good fun.
Assuming no questions? If not, may I have a motion?
I move we approve Resolution 1920-14, designating alternative holiday in lieu of regular holiday.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call?
Trustee Brown?
Yes?
Trustee Chino?
Yes.
Trustee Gillis?
Yes,
Trustee Nahn?
Yes.
Trustee Wilkman?
Yes.
So we go 10, Personnel Services. A, Resolution 1920-16, to decrease the number of certificated employees due to reduction or elimination of particular kinds of services.
So we're bringing this forward. Regretfully, this is probably the board agenda item that we least likely like to prepare and bring forward. This is due to our declining enrollment, and it's also due to some of our staffing has not been as tight as it needs to be. So the district is looking to close a gap of about $1.5 million for the upcoming school year. And unfortunately, the board has to make those decisions later, likely in April and May, yet the law requires that we provide this notice before March the 15th. So we would very much prefer to do this later, but we don't have any choice. This is done by seniority, and so it is absolutely no reflection on any of the individuals on this list. We believe they are great contributors to the district, they are valuable employees, and we would really love to keep all of them, and we hope to. This year, we've had an unusually low number of retirements. We've only had one teacher that has indicated they plan to retire this year. We also have very few individuals who let us know that they're resigning, that they're not going to be back next year. And so in real time, as we get a retirement or we get a resignation, we're going to bring people back off this list. We're not going to wait until late in the school year. We're going to do it in real time. And we're hopeful that we're able to bring everyone back. The other piece is that we have to notice all of the teachers that were hired on the same date. So they have the same seniority date. And so we can't pick and choose who those people are right now. That will happen in a process with RIPSIA in doing a lottery. But we have to notice those people today, or by the 15th. And so the list is longer than we intend it to be. It's more people than we need to release. But because of the seniority situation, we have to notice this many people. Again, we hope that we're able to rehire people as quickly as possible. And as we get more retirements or resignations, we will be doing that. And so, again, this is something we regret having to include on the agenda, and is truly driven by the calendar and the California Education Code.
In that budget.
In our budget, exactly.
Okay, any questions? May I have a motion to approve Resolution 1920-16 to decrease the number of certificated employees due to reduction or elimination of particular kinds of services? No one wants to do it, but unfortunately,
I'll make the motion
okay.
that we adopt resolution 1920-16.
Okay, can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call?
Trustee Brown?
Yes?
Trustee Chino?
Yes.
Trustee Gillis?
Yes.
Trustee Nahn?
Yes.
Trustee Wilchenberg?
No.
Motion carries 4-1. We'll go to 11, Business and Operation Services, Comcast Business Communication Contract.
Okay, so this is probably an item we'd normally put on consent, but it is some of the, little bit of good news that we actually have as far as costs not increasing. So as far as our agreement with Comcast for our Ethernet or internet services that we have, is a 5-year agreement, and it's expiring this June. So we went back through the process of request for proposal. We only had one person or one company respond to that, and that was Comcast, which is the same company that we're currently using. And the good news is, though, that the cost is going to be substantially less than our current agreement. This is something that is E-rate eligible, so there's a discount applied to that. And when you factor in the discount on our current pricing and the new pricing, we're looking to save about $35,000 a year. So we wanted to make the board aware of that. And this is a 3-year agreement, and it is under kind of piggybacking under the CalNet 3 statewide contract. That's how we're able to get the better pricing. Any questions? A little bit.
$3,000 a month is $3,000 a month. Yay.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the Comcast Business Communications Contract?
So moved.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
We'll go to 12A, Fiscal Update and Planning.
Okay, so attached to the agenda item is the enrollment report for February 29th, along with the report from January to show the comparison. The last 2 months, our enrollment has actually increased since all year. Basically, we've been declining up to the last 2 months where we've had some increases. We went up 5 students from the end of, excuse me, I got the wrong one here. Here we go, sorry. We went up 3 students. This month, we went up 5 in the prior month. So let's hope that trend continues, but for now, that's what the numbers are. The next item on here is the budget summary report, and if you look at this report, this is the one that we do monthly, and it compares the prior month, January 31st, to the last month, February 29th, and it shows the changes in our revenues and expenditures by major category. Unlike most of the months where you see very minimal changes, when we do our interim reports, This is when we really go in and do a lot of the hard work, looking at the budgets, reevaluating our revenues, looking at our expenditures and trends and where we're at. Second interim, we're able to capture more savings than we are at first, or in this case, we were able to capture savings. We went down, I think, $500,000 out of this budget, and really took a hard look at areas that we can reduce. We don't normally go this deep at this early, at second interim. We kind of do that as we move closer to the end of the year. So we may have to add back a little bit as we go along, but I feel we're at a pretty good spot with the numbers right now. Any questions on that? Okay. Second interim will be presented as a separate item coming up. And item 3, Superintendent's Budget Advisory Committee. We met the last meeting was on February 27th. Next meeting will be at March 26th at the end of this particular month. And we have a section in the business section on the website where we're posting the presentations of these meetings. Okay. Safety update.
Safety. Just want to report that the sites have submitted their comprehensive safety plans. They've been reviewed, and they will be posted shortly.
Okay, that's it for the item.
Okay. We go 12B, second interim report.
Okay. So I have a little presentation here, little PowerPoint that I'm going to walk you through. So second interim, the purpose of this is we are required by Ed Code 42-130, requires us to prepare 2 interim financial reports to the board each fiscal year, first interim and second interim report. And after reviewing the report, Ed Code requires the board to certify the district's ability to meet its financial obligations for the remainder of the current year as well as the 2 fiscal years. So part of that process is we update go through and we're looking at our revenues, any changes in our revenues and expenditures since first interim. We're using the most current information available. We're updating our multi-year projections using the most current assumptions. And we do this for all of the district funds, but we're only going to be looking at the general fund at the presentation here. The report then, after the board certifies, it is sent to Sonoma County Office of Ed for review, and then subsequently the district receives a letter from them noting approval or disapproval. So the district is projected to meet the required 3% reserve for economic uncertainties for the remainder of the fiscal year and for the 2 subsequent years. So based on this, we are recommending that the board certify a positive certification for the 2019-20 second interim report. So considering where we were last year, this is still not a great picture where we're gonna look at, but we have a positive certification, and I feel we won't have any problems getting it certified or approved by SCO. Excuse me. Okay, so we have a couple graphs here that we look at, and it's our total general fund. You're probably familiar with this graph. You're going to see it in just about every budget presentation that I do. And it basically shows our combined general fund revenues broke down by major object categories. And you can see LCFF sources is by far the largest at $53,802,000. That's about 77% of our total revenues. This is where we get the money we get from the state, which is driven through the formula based on our ADA, the COLA, on duplicated count, et cetera. Total general fund revenues, $69,962,632. So we're dipping under the 70 million mark here. Okay. General fund expenditures. We have total general fund expenditures of $69,884,844. And clearly you can see the bulk of our dollars do go towards salaries and salary-driven benefit costs, including health benefits, which accounts for about 79% of the budget. And then we have the other categories that you can see there in the graph. So this one is one I think it's important to show because when you're looking at the data, we tend to look at it by major object category, and that doesn't always paint the clear picture on where we're spending our dollars. When you break it down by function code, which is part of our accounting code, we can really break it down and we can look and see, well, how much are we spending on instruction and instruction-related for pupil services? So in other words, what are we really spending in the classroom as opposed to administration and plant services, that type of thing? So clearly you can see the instruction-related pupil services is going to be about 80, I think it's about 84% of the total, our total general fund expenditures are going towards those categories. So here's another way to look at the data, and I think this is a useful one when we look at a dollar bill and we can tell how much of that dollar bill is going towards what areas. And we can see in the red box there, that's outlining, that's about our 70+% of salaries and driven benefit cost on that. So when you're looking at our total budget and you look at how much is going towards salaries and benefits, it doesn't leave a lot in other areas that we have in our budget. So when you look at the SACS report that the board received, and that will be online or part of the agenda item here, the SACS report is not a user-friendly document. It is intended for the state's use and purpose, and it takes a little bit of getting really familiar with how to read those reports. So what I'm trying to do here is kind of summarize it and put it in a different format that makes it a little bit easier to understand. So we have our 3-year projections here. We have our current year budget, and what we're looking at is our beginning balance, our total revenues, less our total expenditures, and we get to what our projected ending balance is. Then we look at our reserves, and if you recall, when we had a training with the board, there was 2 areas that we really need to focus on here. One is about a quarter of the way down. It's a surplus deficit line. So we want to see, does our budget reflect a surplus, or are we deficit spending? And for this, we actually have a slight surplus now for 1920, and that's after making all those adjustments that we saw in the current year budget. However, when we move to 2021, we now have that $1.5 million deficit that Mike had referred to, and then a 1.6 after that. So clearly, those things are not sustainable, and those are what we need to really look at now in the budget, starting with the budget committee. You can see at the bottom, that's the next piece that we really want to look at, and we have a 4.49 reserve in current year. That drops down to 3.12. So that's about an $88,000 threshold in there from moving under the 3%. So it's not a lot of room in our budget. The other thing I wanted to point out on here is, well, we have a surplus, right? Well, that's great. And then why does it jump so drastically to a deficit? Well, a few things happened with this. First of all, we had a substantial amount of one-time dollars this year. If you recall, we talked to the board about that. Without that, we would be looking about a $1.1 million deficit on that. So we do have that structural deficit. The other thing is when we did get this has been updated for the governor's January proposal, and we did have that decrease in COLA in the proposal. So initially I told the board it was about a $700,000 decrease. So after we've gone back through, we made adjustments for our ADA, and we updated our unduplicated pupil count. The number is about 550,000 now. If the COLA goes up, though, we would only be looking at about an increase of about 350 of that 550. Part of the change, again, had to do with our ADA, and part of it had to do with the unduplicated count. So we hope the governor comes around and in May revision that we do get more COLA, whether the augmented COLA that we're hoping for, but we can't expect to gain back all that we lost with this. There's other things that factor into that. Okay, any questions on that slide?
When you say you adjusted the ADA, from what I read here, it's a net loss of 35 students?
From
Well, you
prior
ta-
year?
Yeah, what, in here, I guess
So-
what you're projecting for those dollars going down?
So remember, we're gonna be funded on the higher of the current or prior year ADA. So it gets a little convoluted when you're looking at a funded, whether it's a funded ADA or a true ADA drop on that. So what we're trying to do is, as we know, from first interim, we've continued to decline, and now we're starting to catch up to that. So the April will be the time that we get to truly capture that number at our P2 enrollment, and hopefully it goes up a little bit from there.
Okay.
Okay. The next slide talks about some of the challenges, and as I'm telling everybody that we don't have a spending problem, we have a revenue problem. Okay. I think the way we spend our dollars, I think we do a good job on that. But however, our funding is where we have the issue. And directly looking at the increase in LCFF funding, we're only looking at an increase of $622,000. Yet, when we start factoring into next year's budget, the estimated cost for step and column, STRS and PERS, health increase, that's about $1.2 million there. So you can see right away how this is adding to the deficit that we're dealing with. So a funding problem, what we have here. So continued challenges for the board, or for the district and for the board. We got declining enrollment, right? You're all very aware of that. We're hoping the last 2 months continues a trend. We'll see. We have the impact of the state budget and the economy. LCFF revenues, the board's very aware now we're not getting that gap funding that we did for several years, but it's a COLA-only environment. And we just saw how volatile that number could be, right? Just a decrease in the projected that COLA can have a substantial impact on our budget. We have continued impact of STRS and PERS, special education, and the board's very aware we have not settled for this year, so we have collective bargaining that we still need to work with on that. And I added one to here, the impact of the coronavirus on the state economy and on the future projected state revenues. So as we're all seeing, and some of us are experiencing with our own portfolios, it's an impact on the economy, and how that's going to affect the future state revenues is to be seen. The one thing on that, though, is usually we're about a year behind. So if the state starts getting really shaky and they start cutting back on some of their dollars, we're usually about a year later, we'll start feeling that in the numbers and the dollars that we're still getting. But we're kind of in unprecedented times too. So we'll see, particularly in May, if any of this comes out in the budget also.
I have a question about when you said we're a year behind in terms of economic impact. For LEF, you were here in 2008, right?
Correct.
And, a lot of economists are talking about a recession. What impact did the 2008 Great Recession have, and did that not occur until 2009 or 2010?
I can't tell you what the impact to the district, but if it were a similar thing with the declining enrollment or state funding, Robert said it's a year after the fact, I'm sure, then, and same as now.
So in 2009, 2010, there wasn't a decrease in state funding?
I can't quote that right now.
Or
It's
Mike?
a little beyond my data, collection in my brain, so no, I don't. It could be if we go back and look at that.
Mike, do you recall?
I would have to go back and look. I don't have it off the top of my head either.
And I think what I'm basically saying is the state revenues are generated a lot by the taxes. So we're paying those taxes later, right? So the impact on people losing dollars and their investments and things. It's going to take a year to kind of fall out and really impact the state.
To domino effect, and so whichever goes first.
Yes.
It could affect housing, it could affect jobs,
Right.
I mean, it's down the line.
Hard to predict. Property valuation takes, a number of years to adjust.
That's
So-
correct.
Would they ever decrease COLA?
There has been talk that there could at time be a negative COLA.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it really just depends on kind of where they're at. The one thing that's a little bit different than I think some of the prior times is the state has a large reserve that they've been building up, the rainy day reserve. However, if things get really dire, that's gonna go pretty quickly, but it's different where at least we have a little cushion.
Okay.
Are there any questions on second interim? I just want to thank my team in my office. They do work really hard. We all work really hard on this report, and we're really, it's one of those things when we're done with it, we can kind of go, and then on to the next. But I just want to acknowledge their hard work on all this.
Thank you to all of you.
Did I miss one? Okay, we're good. Thank you.
Okay. We need to take action on the second interim report, accepting that as of January 31st, 2020. So can I have a motion on that, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the second interim report as of January 31st, 2020.
Okay, can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
So 12C, we have acceptance of gifts and donations. So we have Legos at Rancho Cotati and elementary schools from Steve and Keith for $150. And technology middle schools from the Runner Park Public Safety Officers Association Sports Foundation for $2,500. So thank you to both of them for a total of $2,650. And may I have a motion to accept the gifts and donations?
I move that the board accept the gifts and donations to schools and district as presented.
Great, thank you. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
We'll go to 13, board member reports and future items. So we'll go this way. Joe?
I just feel like overwhelmed with our,
Overwhelmed.
I'm like, I know I'm not the one who might get a notice, but it's emotionally draining just thinking about it and what someone has to go through. So that's all I have to say.
Okay. Jennifer?
I feel the same way. It's hard. It's hard sitting up here, seeing the people that I asked to leave a position they had in Santa Rosa, and they're on the chopping block. It's very hard.
So hopefully we have retirements. Let's kind of say, come on, retire. And then we can get those people. It's tough because you're laying off the younger individuals and it's not a good process within education. So, okay.
Can I just say one thing?
Sure.
If I can get it out. We've worked really hard in the district, and I appreciate everybody up here. We all are on the same, we all want the same thing. We want great education for our kids, we want everyone to be safe, and we want everyone to succeed. I think it's time that we all come together and we go to the state capitol together, because they need to start funding education accordingly. They need to plan. We plan. They need to plan with us.
Right. As Robert said, we have a revenue problem, not a spending problem. That's what my wife tells me. My spending problem, his plan is perfect. So, no, in all seriousness, no, there are a lot of inequities in funding education, and I agree, we need to put as much pressure. Did they cancel that because of the coronavirus?
Which?
There was a school board CSBA, I think, event in Sacramento. They were gonna do that.
No, we can check.
Yeah, so, anyway, we need to do that. I will pass it on to Marissa?
Well, I think the whole thing's crummy. I mean, I don't know what we're supposed to do when you don't have enough funding to even keep your teachers. So I'm just going to pass to Tim.
Okay. Tim?
I have three things. First, I want to thank the superintendent for the fine work you've done on letting us know what's going on with the rapidly evolving situation with the coronavirus and the responses of the schools and districts in our county. And I really appreciate your regular updates to the board and to the staff and parents and students. I think that transparency and openness about what's going on and possibilities is really the way to, keep things calm. And I just want to thank you for all the hard work and wisdom you've put into this really difficult situation.
Thank you.
And left too, because you've, addressed this issue too, and I really appreciate your leadership. Then I'd like to, building on what Jennifer said, I think it'd be pretty easy for us to put together a letter to the governor and representatives like Bill Dodd, asking for an increase in unrestricted funds. And I don't know what that would take, but I urge the board president and superintendent to put that together for the board. I mean, that would be a first step to maybe, and then build on what Jennifer was saying. Then the third thing is, I just wanted an update on the naming of the theater at the TAG building. Thanks.
We're going to continue to work with Rancho Cotati High School. I know that you had a presentation last time. During public comment, you had a number of comments that were received, and we will determine when the appropriate time is to bring to the board for the public hearing and the board to consider the name.
Great. Is that it, Tim?
Yes.
Okay, superintendent report.
So earlier this evening, the board adopted trustee area maps. The next step in that process is we need to present that to the County Committee on School District Organization. They will be having a public hearing on March the 23rd. It's a Monday, and they'll be doing it right here in this room. So people are invited to attend that. We had an LCAP town hall meeting last week. I want to thank Julie for her organization of that event. And spring break is next week, March 16th through the 20th. And then finally, I think that I want to comment on the district's preparedness for the coronavirus. We are following the guidance and direction of the Sonoma County Office of Education and the Sonoma County Office of Public Health. And we receive almost daily updates from the California Department of Education on the steps that we need to be taking. We are, our custodians are now cleaning all of our hard surfaces every evening. They participated in special training yesterday to make sure that that was happening. We are beginning to limit events that we have scheduled that have 200 or more people that are in attendance. And we realize that that is disappointing and frustrating to many people in the community, but we believe that's really the best guidance we need to take. In Marin County today, they reduced that to gatherings of 100 people or less. So again, we're watching to see what is really the best practice. If the district were to consider the need to close school, we could not do that with consulting with the Department of Public Health. We have to do that in collaboration with them if we're closing for a health-related reason. So we'll continue to monitor. We're encouraging our staff and families, if you are sick and don't feel well, if you have a fever, if you have a cough, to please stay at home, and also with students. We will be reminding families about spring break. If they happen to be traveling to any of the areas where we're hard hit by the virus and there might be a possibility of exposure, we're asking that they share that information with the principal so that we can make appropriate decisions and guidance for them. Tomorrow we're participating in a webinar looking at distance learning. On the face of it, it feels very challenging to do that. Just looking at how do we coordinate all of our teachers, all of our students, all of our families to be able to participate in online education when we know that so many of our families don't have internet access at home. That's a huge issue. So we're looking at how we might be able to accommodate that if it becomes necessary for us to close for a period of time. I think that is it. We're just going to continue to update folks as we receive information, and I think that's about it. Any questions the board has?
Any questions? Good. It's a serious issue, and hopefully it can be resolved. We can get back to some normalcy.
And I think the other piece is that as a district, I think it's our responsibility to be calm, to also provide information in a way that doesn't create panic or confusion in the school district. I think as one of the organizations in the community, it's really our job to provide factual information and guidance and to not overreact. So, that's it.
Thank you. With that, I guess we will adjourn the meeting.